All right, it is a new day and we're gonna make some new progress on the RC51 today. So I am expecting to receive the tail light. I am expecting to receive some new turn signals, and I don't know if those are coming in today or tomorrow. I think tomorrow, but we'll find out. I am expecting a windscreen, which is right here. We're about to unbox it. The chain. And what else am I expecting? Some screws. Some new screws for the fuel tank cap that spun off. I'm gonna have to be really careful with those screws. They are aluminum, and I think I'm going to run through the threads with a steel screw to try to strip out any of the paint that got into the threads, because I think the screw got stuck. So, what else am I expecting? I'm expecting the washers today, as well as the tank edge protectors, these little rubber stoppers that prevent things like this from happening to the frame. I'm expecting all of that to arrive today, so between today and tomorrow, this thing should be fully functional, I believe. Yeah, so let's get started. All right, so I've given myself a little space to work with here, but let's go ahead and check out the new windscreen. Hopefully it is the dark smoked windscreen, double bubble, and it should hopefully prevent this from happening to the gauge cluster in the future. But I do plan to recycle all these parts that don't get used on my eBay store. So if you haven't seen the eBay store for the Life of Mike channel, check it out, link in the description below. Very nicely packaged. All right. And it is damaged. Well, that's not good. Looks like something landed on it and caused some internal cracking. I had such good energy today too. All right, well, I'm just gonna verify the fit anyways, and then we're going to send it back and hopefully get a new one ASAP. Well, sometimes you just can't avoid these kind of things, but I've already reached out to the seller, and hopefully we'll get this resolved soon. So let's go ahead and move on to the next item. So, while I was filming the unboxing of the windscreen, UPS just dropped off this package from, I believe it was Partzilla. And this should be the washer for the banjo bolts and the fuel tank, as well as the fuel tank pads. So let's find out. And here is one tank cushion pad thing. Here is the second. And here are my two banjo bolts washers. Two washers for the banjo bolt. We have progress, ladies and gentlemen. So this means we can mount the fuel tank. And before we do that, we have one more very important item we've been waiting on, which is, you can probably guess, a brand new RK chain. And it is the 520 GXW X-Ring chain. I believe that's what I ordered. I hope. It's a 520, so it should work. I ordered a 106 link. Well, there's really only one way to find out if it's 106 links, and that is to count them. All right, so actually on the side of the box here, if I get it to focus, you can see it says 106 link. So we are good with this chain, and let's go ahead and get it installed. Go ahead and roll this forward. This was definitely the correct length. I picked up this Stockton mini chain link press from Cycle Gear for like 12 bucks, 13 bucks, something like that. I also got the chain breaker from Cycle Gear, and it proved to be a great investment. All right, now that the chain is on the bike, it hasn't been adjusted yet. Obviously, you can see there's a whole lot of slack in here. But what I am gonna do is I'm gonna use the chain before I adjust it to help me to torque down the front sprocket. Front sprocket is gonna be 40 foot-pounds. Am I actually spinning the wheel here? There we go. All right, front sprocket is good. So before we tighten down the chain, I want to be able to spin the rear wheel a few times. And in order to do that, I need to put the bike back into neutral. So I want to put the cover back on and the slave cylinder for the clutch back on. So I am going to attempt to clean this surface up just a little bit, and then we'll get everything sealed up. All right, we've got the chain all tightened up. As you can see, we've got about 1 inch to 1.25 inches of slack. From the forums, it says just tapping the swing arm is just about right. So I'm pretty happy with that slack. So let's go ahead and drop her down. And I think the next thing we can move on to is the fuel tank. All right, before I put the fuel tank on, I'm gonna go ahead and do a quick oil change. Normally you wanna start the bike, let it warm up a little bit. It helps the oil flow faster. But I've done oil changes before without starting the bike. It's just gonna take a little bit more time to drain the oil. So let's go ahead and get started. It's about 7 o'clock, 7:15 right now. I wanna get to the auto parts store before they close. So I'm going to have to remove the fairing on this side here, and that'll give me access to the fill port there over the clutch. And the drain plug is already exposed right here. And we are going to swap our oil filter as well. So let's go ahead and get started. So the washer for the drain plug is pretty banged up. Well, it's pretty flattened and mushroomed. So thankfully, I have extras that I'll be using. So we will be using a brand new one, and that's always recommended because, yeah, you could try to reverse it, but you can see it's already folding up on that side, so I think this washer is pretty well spent. All right, I'm going to try to remove the oil filter by hand, and if I cannot do it by hand, then I've got my handy dandy oil filter remover wrench tool thing. So righty tighty, lefty loosey. Oh yeah, that's on there. Oh, there's my left hand. Let's try my right hand. Man, that thing is on there and most likely original. Let's see. think it's this way. That would be to tighten it. And there you have it. This tool is awesome. And she's free. There it is. All right, I just got back from the auto parts store and I picked up some 10W40 4-stroke motorcycle oil, which we're going to be using for the RC51. And I picked up a new oil filter, which we will also be using. This one is an STP S6607. So, and oddly enough, it is blue. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to torque down the drain plug, which I've got a new washer installed, and I'm going to have to pause the video and go look up the torque spec real quick. All right, I'm back, and it is 22 foot-pounds. So let's dial this guy back. Let's do it. All right, 22 foot-pounds, and the oil filter is 19 foot-pounds. However, I normally just do that hand tight. Put just a little tiny bit of oil on our new oil filter. Let's go ahead and clean up the reds a little bit. Looks like we're all dried up. I think we're good. So go ahead and tighten this guy up. We're just going to do a hand tight. My left hand, I'd rather get it a little tighter with my right hand. Again, you don't want this to be too tight because you do have to get it off again eventually. It's kind of an odd grip, odd way to grip it. And not going too tight. I think we're good there. Now, we're ready to add oil. So this bike, from what I've been reading on the forums, I believe it takes anywhere between 4 quarts and 4 to 4.5. I think it's probably, I believe the manual said 4.1. We're gonna start with 4 and see how that does. It is pretty dry given that we swapped out the filter. So let's go ahead and start with 4 quarts and see how that goes. Here we go, the most stressful part of the whole build, putting that gas tank on here. I am not going to risk spilling gas or hitting this or damaging this, so we're actually going to remove this. It's only a couple of bolts. We'll get it out of the way so we have full access to install all the lines, and we'll do it right the first time. Got all the parts ready, so let's do it. That was one heck of a battle getting that tank on. I tell you what, I don't know if you can tell through the camera, but I am beat. I'm sweating through my clothes. That was a pain in the butt, but it is almost done. I got all the hoses hooked up. The last thing I have to do is install the little bumpers. And there's a silhouette on the frame of where the bumpers used to be, these little black bumpers. So I'm gonna install them in the same spot on the tank. But once that's done, we can reinstall all the fairings. I am supposed to be getting the hardware for the fuel gas cap tomorrow. So I will be able to put gas in this thing and start it. Right now, you'll notice that my fuel valve, I'm so exhausted. The fill line for the oil is past the full mark, and there's actually a little bubble. Can't really see it, but it's just barely over the fill line. It's probably right about up to here, but we haven't actually started it yet. So once I turn this thing over and let it run for a little bit, it's probably gonna suck some of that oil into the new oil filter, which should drop it just to the just below the full line, hopefully right in the middle of the midpoint. So that's the plan tomorrow. I'm gonna monitor that once I give it the initial start, and we should be good to go. I'm gonna put those bumpers on, reinstall the tail section, install the rest of the fairings, and then I'll probably call it a night because I'm exhausted. All right, I'm at a good stopping point here because I ran out of well nuts, so I can't put the other fairing on. But here is a progress update. I don't even know what time it is, but we kind of powered through and got the seat on. I'll have the hardware to put the gas cap on tomorrow. And I'll stop by Ace Hardware to pick up a few more well nuts. Those little expandable nuts that are needed for there, and down there as well. So I've only got one left, I believe. And I'm not sure if I said this already, but I spoke with the seller who provided the I spoke with the seller who provided the windscreen, and they said they're gonna send a new one. So I might just put the one they sent me for now on there until the new one arrives. But that would mean I'm either gonna have to steal well nuts from the old, which stealing them from the old windscreen, the well nuts have been compressed for years. So they're sort of in this fixed state. You can sort of bend them and put them in position. So I could always do that, but why not just buy a new set? So I am due for a trip to Ace tomorrow, but theoretically tomorrow we could fire this thing up and make sure we've got the appropriate oil levels and make sure everything is running properly. So time to clean up, get some rest, and we will check back in tomorrow.